Hey guys, it's Jessica. How's it going? Today we're going to play a little bit of StoneHearth. I've actually played this game several times before, but most recently I got further in it than I ever have. I had a town going. Normally my people get unhappy and angry before I can get very far, so I wanted to start a new game. The first thing that I did want to mention to you guys is I am using quite a few mods for this game. We'll talk about them as they come up throughout the video, but the one that you need to know for right now is called Ace. It's actually a pretty big mod for this game, and it changes a lot of things up in the gameplay. So it's definitely one that you want to have, and you're going to want to get it as soon as you install the game before you start a new game. So there's Ace, and then we'll just talk about the rest of them as they come up, but every single one of them will be listed in the description below with the full name and the link to the Steam page. I always choose the Ascendancy. That's the only one that I've ever played on. This is the story of a brave band of settlers from the Ascendancy, a prosperous and industrious kingdom. Seeking new lands and adventure, they set off to Darkmoor Forest. I always choose Darkmoor Forest. Some of the other ones that you can choose are just make it a little bit more difficult. I like to have an easy, relaxing game. This is like my chill game that I play. A location that is sure to be an intriguing place to start anew. So used to when I would play this game, I would play it on the normal mode. And what happens is later in the game, after you get a couple people, it's not so bad to be playing on, or it's not bad at all to play on normal mode, but at the beginning, whenever you're just starting out and you only really have probably one artillery person, it's a little bit more difficult and a little frustrating. And again, this is not a chill game. I don't really want to be getting frustrated or my character's dying or whatever, so I just choose to play on the easier mode. You can probably tell pretty quickly on this screen that I do have a couple mods. The first one, you can see where I unlock attribute and trait restrictions, and that's being able to change the numbers beside mind, body, and spirit. Normally you would just have to do that randomly until you find something that you like, as well as the traits to the right that I'm deleting. But this way you can just choose exactly what you want. It's not really necessary, but is super helpful starting out. Once people are added to your town later, you're not able to change that. So it's not like you're going to get it for everybody. It's just your first 5 people. And so it's very helpful to start out. And then the other one is called, the first one is called Beam. And the second one is called Locks of Many Hair, and you can see that my guys have a lot more hairstyle, hair color options and stuff like that. That is purely just for looks. It has nothing to do with the actual gameplay. As other people are added into your community, they also come in with an array of hairstyles, hair colors. I did some research to find out exactly which characteristic or which skills are best for each characters. And so that way I could be as accurate as possible starting out, and then also so that way I could explain it to you guys. So you have Mind, Body, Spirit. Mind increases diligence and curiosity, which means diligence is going to be how much they work compared to how much they sleep. So if your guys have a low mind, they might sleep a little bit more. And then curiosity is how much XP they earn. So if they're more curious with a higher mind, then they are going to level up faster. They get more experience. I don't really care about sleep length. As far as I can tell, most of my guys sleep about the same amount. So really I use mind for XP earned. Body is muscle, speed, and stamina. Those are all pretty self-explanatory. Muscle is how much attack damage they do. Speed is the speed that they walk, and stamina is the health that they have. So for like example, the artillery person, I obviously want them to have a high attack damage and HP, especially at the beginning whenever they're by themselves and no healer. They need a lot of health. But I want speed also for a character like the farmer, because they're walking back and forth between their fields a lot. And then spirit, the last one, is courage, willpower, compassion, and I forget what the last one's called, but the last one is like it's self-explanatory, and they can make higher quality items. So basically, for spirit is beneficial for something like artillery or maybe your cleric, because they don't flee as much. So they're courageous. They don't flee as much. Willpower, they have better health regeneration, and they can be healed better by your healer. And then compassion helps with any pets that your shepherd has. Your pet, or not pets, but the animals that the shepherd brings in. If you have a higher compassion, the happier that those animals are. And then also you can have more pets. So like the way that all of my guys have companions, sometimes your characters, especially the trapper and the shepherd, will find and adopt other pets, and they can have more pets if they have higher compassion. They can also craft more exceptional items. So that's the 3, and pretty much it's a little bit your opinion and your preference, but for most of it, it's pretty straightforward. So I always start out with an artillery person. You can see that my guys are just named what they are. I used to not do that because I wanted it to be a little bit more realistic, but I have found that it honestly just makes my life easier, and they don't give a crap what they're named, and it really doesn't even matter. And at first glance, I can tell who people are and what they do. So I found that to just be easiest rather than trying to keep up with what they are. So I always start out with an artillery person. You get attacked at the beginning. It's not really by stuff that's gonna like take out your camp. But I just always want to start off with an artillery person just to get that out of the way. And also, you never know what kind of skills you're going to get on the new people that come into your town, and what if you don't get someone with good body and spirit. And so I just want to start out with a good artillery person. It can be beneficial for your artillery person to have a high mind stat as well, because mind helps with them leveling up faster. They get more XP. But I choose to put mine in body and spirit. I just prefer those. And then for his attributes, I always give everyone pets just because I like to have pets. I think I don't know for sure, but I think it raises town morale, and it's fun to just have them running around. So everyone gets a pet, and then I do featherweight. I think it's called featherweight or lightweight. It's the little feather that you see under their artillery. I like to do that for my artillery person because as long as they're not carrying anything, they walk faster, and typically if they're doing their job, they're not having to haul anything, and I want them to be able to walk faster to be able to get to enemies and take them down. And then the last one you see on there is jokester, and I just kind of randomly put throughout my little guys, I'll do either optimistic or jokester, and so that just helps increase town morale as well, because I want to keep morale up. And the artillery person is one that's walking around all the time and probably comes in contact with people the most in comparison to, like, let's say the farmer, who's typically going to be at the farm. And so I make the artillery person a jokester. Typically I would go like 616 for my carpenter, but I went ahead and did 2 in body so that way my carpenter can move a little bit faster, and then I don't really worry about my carpenter's mind being too high. 5 is still pretty high, but I'm not too worried about them getting enough XP because my carpenter always levels up super fast. They're always making so much stuff. And then spirit, they make exceptional items more often, and they can have more pets, so I'll always give them a high spirit. Farmer, like I said before, I want my farmer to be able to go faster, and so I give them a 6 body stat. It's pretty important that your farmer make good food and level up kind of quickly. And your farmer turns into your cook, so you can see below that my cook actually has a 6 because I wanted their XP to be pretty quick. I wanted them to be able to earn XP pretty quickly, so that way as a farmer, so that way they could turn into a cook, and then as a cook they level pretty quickly as well. So the farmer doesn't really need high spirit. They're not crafting items, So it's not super important. And then on my cook, they have a 2 for body, just so that way they can walk a little bit faster than base. And then they have a 5 in spirit, because I do want them to craft exceptional items and whenever they're crafting so much, you have to think about how much your cook is crafting. Your cook crafts almost nonstop once you get like a farm going, and your trapper's getting you meat as well. And exceptional items makes your town happier. So I just want them to have a pretty good spirit. And then my trapper is the only one that I wanted everything spread out. So you can see at the top of my screen where it says unlock attributes and trait restrictions. That's actually a mod that I use. I will type it on the screen and tell you what that is, because I'm not sure right off, but it makes it to where you can, as you can see the arrows above and below the numbers beside mind, body, and spirit, it makes you to where you can change those up. So from what I understand, whenever you randomize it, the highest amount that you can get in the game normally is 13. So although I could just have given everyone 666, I just go ahead and keep it at 13. So everyone's numbers add up to 13. So with my trapper, while I could have just put everything 666, I wanted to kind of make it as even as possible, and I gave them a higher spirit because, as I said before, they're one of the ones that will adopt animals as they find them out in the wild, and so I gave them a higher spirit, so that way there's more of a chance for that, because I just like animals being around the town. You want them to have a decent body because they walk a lot, and you want them to be able to walk faster, and then a decent mind, so that way they level up decently fast. As far as the, what are they called, the extra things that you can get over here, the animal companion, you can see the one I'm clicked on is green thumb. So I did a little silly here, and my farmer should have also had green thumb. Cook seems to, well, that's their name. This character seems to have a way with plants that is somewhat indescribable. I should have put that on my farmer as well, and I just didn't think about it, but I give them all pack mule. This Hearthling loves to haul things around for inexplicable reasons. They move faster when they are carrying something in their pack, so I give that to all my people that are going to be carrying stuff around. I pretty much give that to literally anyone besides my artillery people. Obviously, once I'm in game and I'm getting guys on the daily, I don't get to choose those attributes, and so I just give it to everyone that I start out with, and then, as I said before, I give everyone else either Jokester, which is the little hat that's on artillery and carpenter, and then Optimistic is on farmer and trapper, so I just kind of randomly put those out there, one or the two of those. Okay, on this one we select our starting resources, so you automatically get to start out with a carpenter. No matter which one you choose, it doesn't show it on the screen, but you always get a carpenter no matter which one you choose. And then I always like to start out with a farmer. The herbalist, the second one, has the trapper, the footman, and the herbalist. The footman you can make immediately with the carpenter, so that's not really beneficial. The herbalist I don't think is beneficial, just because you probably, I mean, unless you just pick a really good map that has a bunch of flowers around you, you're not going to be able to do anything with the herbalist for a little bit anyway. And then trapper can be super beneficial, but like none of my guys are vegetarians because I was able to choose which attributes that I wanted, but I just don't want them to only have, I don't want them to start out with only meat, and I don't care about gold starting out. I usually barely spend my gold. I end up with way more gold than I even need whenever I play this game. I'm really stingy with my gold. Military expedition, I'm on the easy mode. I really don't need a military expedition. Noble entourage, you start out with a cook, but without a farmer. That's not super helpful. With the carpenter, you get a carpenter, like I said, no matter what, and the carpenter can make the farmer's hoe that you get on the one that I'm choosing. So I guess that one wouldn't be too bad, but I guess I just like starting out with the first one. And then the last one, money solves all problems. Again, I usually am very stingy with my money, and I don't need a lot of gold anyway. So I'll go ahead and choose food for days. Okay, click the map to choose your settlement's location. I am incredibly picky. So as you can see right here, this is the mod that I have. This is the things that you can change. You can make your world size bigger or smaller. I just keep it on normal because I think the normal size is an appropriate size. Normally, lakes and dirt holes are enabled, just like your basic game, they would be enabled. I don't like the huge lakes. As far as I can tell, the only reason why water is beneficial to you is because you need it for your farms, and then your trapper can also set up places to fish. In one of the recent maps that I did, I found a little tiny bit of water that was big enough to have 6 fishing traps in, and my fish kept getting ruined because it was too much. So even 6 was way too much. You really only need like 3 or 4, as long as your trapper is also getting meat from other places and your farms are doing well. So I don't care to have big bits of water. So I disabled lakes and dirt holes, and then for rivers I ended up putting a max quantity of 3 because as I was searching through and rolling new maps, excuse me, as I was rolling new maps, there was one that I saw that the like 2 of the rivers, I had it on 2 just to kind of give myself some variety because most of the rivers are really short. And there was one where it was like the 2 rivers blocked off a piece of land, and so no enemies would be able to get to you from either side. And I thought, that's interesting. I'm going to try to find a map like that. So I went ahead and bumped my rivers to 3. Sizes, I'm not sure what all that includes. I think just rivers. And so max quantity, or sorry, sizes. Let me restart. Sizes includes just rivers, and so it's automatically set on wide. I like to set mine on narrow because, as I said, I don't need a lot of water. And then locations for the rivers. Honestly, I should have unchecked mountains. I don't really like my my rivers to be in the mountains because I want to build somewhere on grass where farms are. And so I disabled plains because I want it near the mountain though. And then special modes, I tried a couple different of these special modes. I didn't like Skylands. I didn't even look at canyons. I didn't like Waterworld, way too much water. And then I tried super flat, but it made most things like plains areas. And while I like the flat areas, I don't feel like there's a lot of resources in them. And so I try to go for more of like the foothill area. The very first thing I do is always do my starting season to spring. It's beneficial that by the time summer gets here, you have hats and clothes for your people to wear to help keep them cool because it can be really hot and they can have like, I think it's called sunstroke. So the very first thing I do is start off in spring. Same thing with autumn. If you start off with the autumn, you need to be prepared for the winter. I think summer's a little bit easier to prepare for, and so I start off in the spring. The worst thing about the spring is that it rains a lot. I have not found a way to get away from the rain, or as far as I know, there's no hat or something that protects you from the rain. However, what you'll see what I do is build my beds in like a mined out area, so that way they're not getting rained on when they sleep, and they're pretty content. They usually don't have an issue with that. So here is the map and location I ended up choosing. I've never seen anything like this before, but there was a piece of foothills in the middle of the mountains. I chose to do this because typically whenever I play this game, I want to build my area in a big flat space, and I don't want to have to build ladders down to the next area or up to the next area because more enemies can get to you this way. So those mountains are all raised above me, so the only way that anything can get to me from the mountains is if I build a ladder up to the mountains. So I thought that this would be a pretty safe place to live, and that river is small enough that if I wanted to build a bridge across it, I could have that whole area be my my entire settlement if I wanted to. I wasn't sure exactly how big this was going to be. I knew that the entire area in the middle would be big enough, but once I got in here, I actually realized that just the one side of the river is more than enough. So I don't know if I'll end up building a bridge, but I love this place that I'm starting out in. This that you see me dragging around on the screen is another mod that I have. It is you saw it pop up at the top left, it's a crafter queue mod, and it shows, you'll see me use it, it shows what all of your crafters are making at that time, or if they have an empty queue, then you can queue some more stuff up, and it's an easy way just to keep an eye on your crafters in case they're not getting anything done. I know that I typically will start my crafters and then they get done, and if it's someone like my mason, I always have a hard time leveling my mason up because I don't use the mason for a whole lot. And so if my mason's not doing anything, I definitely want to get him started on something else. So the way I decide where I want to start out, obviously I knew I wanted to be in the middle of these set of mountains, but there is a very narrow part of the mountains on one side of the map, so I was trying to decide if I want to settle near that, so that way I could eventually dig through that if I wanted to get to the outside world. But once I got in here and I realized how big this area was, I was like, I don't need to go to the outside world. So I just tried to find something that had a lot of resources near it. So you can see that the place that I chose to settle at has some mushrooms. You do start out with a little bit of food, but that's just a little bit more. And then there's just like a big flat open area near water. So that's the reason why I chose where I chose. Alright, you guys, that is going to be it for today. This is a pretty in-depth intro to this game, especially if you've never played before, so we will pick up here next time, and you can find the link to that second episode in the description. I hope you enjoyed it.